Hey, the Marvel press conference is up.
Here we have the Ultimate Universe, the Marvel Universe, and then here we have the Ultimate Universe. Now, which one of you guys would like to drop the big bomb on our fans today of what we can expect from Secret Wars?
Let me.
You can do it. You can do it. You can take credit.
You've got. It's really simple.
It was all Axel's idea.
If only.
It was the first thing he said coming in. The first day he was editor in chief.
No,
he
I said AVX.
"Why don't we?"
I said AVX.
Yes, you did. You did. All right.
Two should fight. Anyway, the Ultimate Universe, the Marvel Universe, they're going to smash together. Imagine them as two pizzas. They're going to slap together. You're going to have all new toppings. Some toppings are going to drop off. You're going to yell about some that are missing. You're going to love the new ones that are there. And that is the Marvel Universe moving forward. It's more than just the Marvel Universe and the Ultimate Universe. It's all the universes you can imagine. That's it. This is it. This is the Marvel Universe moving forward.
No. No! No. 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 Yes. Reboot time, baby. That's right. Another reboot is happening. DC already did it. Now Marvel's doing it. You know what I can't wait for is the Image reboot. The one where they take all their hip young indie books now and merge them with all their superhero 90s crap and just smash it together. Coming this summer from Image Comics. Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky's Spawn. And Rob Liefeld's Bitch Planet. Actually, scrap all that. That all sounds horrible. Yes, Marvel has had their big press conference in which they said for the longest time that they are not going to do a reboot, but then today they said that they're not doing a reboot. Like, it's one of those things where it's not really a reboot, but it's close enough that you could try and take them to court over it, but if you got there, you fail and you lose because there would be some weird, like, rule about what is a reboot, and they would have not hit it 100%. Plus, they would have had, like, Matt Murdock as their attorney, and you can't beat that guy. But yes, for everybody who doesn't know, what's been happening in the Marvel Universe, especially in the new Avengers and the Avengers book, is that there have been these things called incursions, in which alternate realities have come unattached, and they've been slamming into each other with the Earth as the focal point. And when these Earths collide, the entire universes are wiped out, and in New Avengers they've been trying to figure out ways to stop it, but it's been one of those, it's only a matter of time until it's, hey, what happens when we can't stop it from happening? And they have announced that their big event for this summer, Secret Wars, is going to indeed be the day when they can't stop it, when the final planets all kind of collide. And those final planets are going to be Earth 616, the regular Marvel Universe, and the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, they basically said that they're going to be ending the Marvel Universe and they're going to be ending the Ultimate Universe, and that the universe that is created after this, that moves forward, is some weird combination of the two of them. It's taking aspects from both universes and merging them together, and that is going to be the new universe that moves forward. And a lot of people, as you can understand, have freaked out about this. A lot of people are upset about it. In fact, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna try and act like I'm better than anyone else. For any of you out there who've been following my Tumblr account, the day that this was announced, I kind of, what's the polite way of putting this, lost my collective In fact, for like 12 hours after this happened, the inside of my head was nothing but a Phoenix Wright battle going on non-stop just to determine how I felt about this. Hold it! How can you say that you're looking forward to this? We've seen what happens with the New 52. These reboots are always a bad idea. Objection! Marvel's been watching DC. They know what mistakes they've made and they've been taking notes so they know not to repeat it. Objection! And you're just going to say that? Where's your proof that any of this was planned out? Take that! Hickman's been playing this in his Avengers since it began 2.5 years ago. Now there's a lot to talk about on this, and that's why I've got multiple videos that are going to be dedicated to this. Over the next couple of weeks, I've got a couple of videos that are going to be coming out. You can subscribe to my channel to see them, hint hint. But you know, I've got a video that is just laying out step by step every single thing that you need to know to prepare yourself for Secret Wars. I've got a video that is the top 5 characters that are likely to survive the Secret Wars, the top 5 characters who are likely to not survive the Secret Wars, and top 5 lessons that Marvel can learn from another company who shall go nameless, who recently did their own reboot and kind of screwed it up on every level. But you know, think of those videos as the ego and super ego. More, you know, calculating, more learning, more just, the basic facts. This video here, the first one, is the id. This is raw emotions. And I worked through a lot of my emotional problems with this already, because, after it was announced, I work in a comic book store, so I went in there, and me and my fellow employees, we marched down into the secret Dr. Strangelove bunker underneath the store, and we just had it out. We just, basically aired all of our grievances, had all of our complaints about this, had all of our concerns, our hopes, our dreams. Someone saying kumbaya at one point. There's a lot of hugging and crying. And after we emerged, I was mostly okay with this. I was more optimistic than I was not. So I'm going to lay out for you all the reasons why I feel more positive, but I'm also gonna still say my concerns with this. I mean, don't get me wrong, listen, I still do have problems with this. Number one problem being, Marvel, why the hell are you announcing this now? This doesn't come out for 4 more months. That's a third of a year. The solicitations for this don't even come out till next month. I mean, we can't even order this until next month. Why did you announce this? So people would rush to their comic book store and say, hey, I want to reserve me a copy of that? No one does that. I know it'd be great if we lived in that fantasy world where everybody who wanted to buy a special book came in and specially pre-ordered it, so that way the market would reflect how the customers actually want their books, but we don't live in that world. And also, this is your big, massive event book, okay? Every store out there is going to order a butt ton of this. A metric butt ton of these books. That's how many they're going to be. Nobody's going to be selling out of this. Everybody's going to have tons of copies. So basically all you did by announcing this so far in advance is just freak everybody out. All you've done is just give people a reason to spend the next 4 months getting emotionally prepared for what may or may not happen. But alright, let's get into the main announcement itself. I would love it if I felt 100% one way or 100% another way on this, because honestly that's good for ratings when someone just gets on the camera and starts ranting. But honestly there's a lot to consider here. And I'll just start by saying, I understand why they're doing this. I do. I honestly do understand why they're doing this. There's multiple reasons why they have to do something like this. Number one reason being, they don't know what the hell to do with the Ultimate Universe. And a lot of people have been saying, well, the Ultimate Universe, hey, it's no book in that sells except for Miles Morales. So why can't they just let Miles Morales have his own universe? Well, a few reasons. Number one, the Ultimate Universe used to be huge. It used to be so big that some of you younger kids might not realize this, but back when that started, for like its first 2, 3, even 4 years, people were saying, just get rid of the regular Marvel Universe. We don't need the regular Marvel Universe anymore. We like the Ultimate Universe. And it's like simpler, it's more of the characters that we love, it's not this big thing we have to jump into, it's a better adaptation, just keep the Ultimate Universe. And yeah, that didn't last. So that's the thing, you can't really take something that was a juggernaut and just have it be one book on its own. That kind of looks bad, but also at the same time, they had all those other books out there for years in the Ultimate Universe, building up this continuity, building up all these characters, and now you have only one character out there who's kind of meant to encapsulate all that. It becomes kind of confusing. I mean, I love Miles Morales, but I'll admit, every time that I pick that up, and I see the Ultimate version of the Avengers in there, or, one of the other Ultimate superheroes, I'm just kind of like, I don't know what you are. I've totally forgotten. There was too much to remember. So yeah, honestly, I can understand that they have to, take the Ultimate Universe and merge it in. What else are you gonna do with the Ultimate Universe? I mean, Miles Morales, I love that book, but as confusing as that universe has become, it wouldn't have lasted on its own, just by itself. Whereas a book like, say, Spider-Gwen, that's fresh, and it's only one book. You can follow that one book from here until eternity, and it will be fine. And another reason why they have to do this is because it does end up making the universe easier to understand, especially for new readers. I'll get to that in a moment. But the other reason why they have to do this is because despite all the letters that I have written to the National Time Board, time continues to move forward. Seriously, you guys can't stop it for a day? Come on, man, I've written you so many letters. But no, time continues to move forward. And what I mean by this is that a lot of people think that the reason why Marvel is doing this is solely because of this guy and this guy. But actually, a lot of it also has to do with this guy and this guy. Now what I mean by this is that Marvel has always had several characters who are set in specific times. And a lot of companies will do that where they have the future. We've all seen those old horror films that say from this far off futuristic world of 2000. I mean, The Jetsons was set in 2002. I mean, that's kind of the point I'm making. But one of these characters was Iron Man 2020, a recurring villain for Iron Man, in which he was a futuristic version of Iron Man brought back from the year 2020 who had more advanced tech. And here's the thing, he was made back in like the late 70s, early 80s when 2020 was way off there. And now 2020 is next Tuesday. It's coming in close. So they kind of have to figure out what are they going to do with that. I mean, the moment they hit 2020, all those previous stories involving this character are done. They don't exist anymore, they make no sense, or, they have to come up with some explanation for it. And I know what you're going to be saying, well, why on earth would they do that solely just for this one character? They could easily explain that. Sure, they could. But then what do we do when we hit 2099? And I know what you're thinking, 2099, that's so far off. 2020 used to be so far off too, not anymore. It's one of those things in which you could keep putting this off, but eventually there would come a day in which Marvel had set characters so far ahead that they would have said, there's no way we're going to still be making comics at that point in time, and then it's like, holy crap, we're still making comics at this point in time. So, eventually they would have had to have come up with an explanation for this. But he's just a little part of it. The main part is characters like Magneto. Magneto, part of his backstory was that he was a child during the Holocaust. He was in the concentration camps during World War II, and that played a major part on his character. He grew up seeing the worst in humankind. He grew up hating humankind and seeing what their prejudices could do, so he swore not to let that ever happen again. It was a major part of his character. Here's the problem. World War II is set in a specific time. The Marvel Universe keeps gradually moving ahead. Basically, for like every 3 or 4 years that we live in our world, the Marvel characters live 1 year in theirs, so everything keeps moving forward while Magneto's origin point stays there. Meaning that when Magneto was originally introduced, he was like 50 years old. Now he's 90. That's one of the reasons why I didn't have as big of a problem as other people did when they announced that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were no longer their kids, because when you stop and think about that, yeah, there was a time when it made sense, but now it means that Magneto had them when he was 60. And 10 years from now, it will mean he had them when he was 70. And in another 10 years, it will mean he had them when he was 80. And in another 10 years, when he was 90. And then what you're stuck with is a 120-year-old supervillain who had kids when he was 90 years old and who made friends with Charles Xavier when he was 70 and Charles was 20. It's one of those things in which, yeah, it has to eventually be addressed. You have to figure out what you're going to do with that character. Or, think of the Punisher. The Punisher was one of those characters who was always set in Vietnam. And a lot of the problems that came from that war, and a lot of the kind of darkness that America felt during that war, was poured into his character when he was created. That played a major part in his character. Here's the thing. If he is set at Vietnam, that means he is now busting up gang members when he's 70. It ain't happening. And if you've been reading the most recent Punisher series, it's very clear they have changed that. It is very clear that they have set him more during the modern day wars, that he has far more military experience in line with the kind of wars that we fight now. So they've already updated him. This, doing a reboot like this would just make it official. It would just give him a new specific starting point. So, okay, I understand why they had to do this eventually, but it doesn't mean I have to like it, okay? Like most of you, when I heard about this, I flipped the fudge out, and yeah, I went on a massive rant about how, Marvel, you're just going to take all the things that I was loving about you and you're going to get rid of it. Female Thor, she's gone. Sam Wilson as Captain America, he's gone too. Why do we need that when we can just reboot it all and bring it all back? And why are you doing this? Just to bring in new readers? You can't play with your new readers until you're done playing with your old new readers. You just got new readers in from these new Captain America and Thor characters. Man, I'm dehydrated after that. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. And I should make it clear before I continue off that the rest of this is just pure speculation. Professor Thorgy is not an actual professor. Alright, when we all freak out about this potential Marvel reboot, let's be honest, we're all freaking out about it because we're comparing it to the New 52. We think they're going to do to the Marvel comics what exactly they did to the New 52. I don't think that's going to happen, and one of the reasons why is, I kid you not, when DC Comics planned the New 52, that wasn't even at the beginning of Flashpoint. At the beginning of Flashpoint, they were still planning the new series that were going to be coming out after Flashpoint. Remember that Speed Force book they were playing with Wally West and Kid Flash and the new Impulse that was going to spin out of Flashpoint? Yeah! When's that coming? But with Marvel Comics, they actually have been playing this for 2.5 years. It's been the entire defining point of Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers series, and it started very clearly with the Age of Ultron storyline. They clearly have been working on this for a long time, so I can't really imagine the editorial staff at Marvel planning all these things like, Sam Wilson as Cap, knowing full well they're going to just cancel it in 6 months. I can't imagine them doing that. And also the other big difference between Marvel and DC is that Marvel has a much more tightly knit group of writers who all talk to each other. There are those famous Marvel writer retreats that everybody goes on where they all go out there and then for just a whole week they just hammer out ideas and sit around the campfire and make s'mores and then talk about what they're going to do with the Marvel Universe for the next couple of years. And it's not just the couple, top highest people at the top. It's pretty much anybody who has signed a contract with Marvel, whether it be an editor or a writer, who go out to these things and they have some kind of a say on this. DC, on the other hand, when they were doing the New 52, there were so many writers who came out of there telling horror stories about how, yeah, I went in and when they told me it was a brand new universe, I asked them, is this canon? And they would tell me, you don't need to worry about that. Not yes or no, which is kind of the kind of information that a writer needs to know when they start writing a character. They would just be told, we can't tell you if that actually happened. Marvel, on the other hand, their writers actually went into this, and two of their writers being Rick Remender and Jason Aaron. Rick Remender doing the all-new Captain America, and Jason Aaron doing the new Thor book. And those guys are not people who plan very short runs. These are guys who plan long games. Hell, Rick Remender plans stuff like 8 years in advance when he starts writing a character. I can't imagine that guy being involved with all this reboot talk and going, okay, yeah, I'll just completely throw out every storyline that I've been building on. Alright, yeah, sure, I have no problem with that. Not to mention, have you seen how well Jason Aaron and Rick Remender are doing over at Image Comics? Marvel fully knows that if they tick them off, those guys can just pick up their ball and go home, alright? They don't need Marvel. They're doing Marvel a favor by being there. So, okay, then I thought, alright, so Marvel has their future plan, they've been playing the present when this is all happening, but what about the past? That was another huge problem with the New 52, in which the New 52, like I said, no one knows what happened in that. It's been around for 3.5 years right now, and still we know that Superman died at one point, but it wasn't from Doomsday, so we don't know what actually happened, and we know that Darkseid still sent Batman back in time, but it wasn't through Final Crisis, and they've still only fought Darkseid once, so we don't know when this actually happened, and we know that Martian Manhunter says he was on the team of Justice League, but then they say there's only been 7 members of the Justice League, and that I'm getting a headache. So basically our concern is that this is just going to be another jumbled mess in which nobody knows what's canon, nobody knows what makes sense in this universe about how things actually occurred. I mean, for God's sakes, Blackest Night apparently still happened, but no character has ever died in the DC universe, so who exactly came back to life? And, okay, stop, okay, moving forward. Alright, so we're basically just concerned that this is just going to be another jumbled mess of a history. But then I realized something. Marvel had been putting out all those little promo images that just spotlight various events that have happened in the history of Marvel Comics. And they've been saying these are alternate realities. They're just some of the realities that are going to collide. But at first I was like, how does that make sense? How is Avengers vs. X-Men an alternate reality? Does that just mean that it's an alternate reality where that's still happening? Or how is, Civil War an alternate reality? None of these make sense as alternate realities. But then they said something during the press conference in which they mentioned that these one-shots that they're putting out about these universes are going to help to fill in the quote-unquote battle world. And this battle world is the new world that is made up of all these realities colliding together, and that's going to be the Marvel Universe moving forward. And that's when it kind of hit me. These are not alternate realities. These one-shots are going to explain the history of Marvel Comics. Every single one of those one-shots is an event that still happened in the Marvel Universe. So basically, when you read these one-shots, you will now know what happened in that storyline in this new universe. They have given you a complete history of all these big events. Not a total history of all the characters. There's probably some stuff that we're still not going to know, some stuff that's still going to be confusing, but these books will end up defining the history of it. You look at this new universe and go, well, what happened during Civil War during this universe? Boom, pick up the Civil War issue. Well, what happened during the Planet Hulk? Boom, pick up the Planet Hulk. And yeah, some of these are confusing. Like, a lot of these look basically exactly the same, but then there are some like Infinity Gauntlet that look completely different. But I'm very excited that they're doing this. And yeah, of course, it's just kind of a way to cash in. What I would have liked to have seen them done is put out like one massive 48-page book that is just mostly art, very few words, just like a little blurb that just gives you a description, mostly just art so that people can figure it out themselves, and then sell that for $1. They would have lost a little bit of money, but they would have gained a lot of readers. But I can also tell you, as someone who works in a comic book store, I know they're going to be collecting all these into one massive trade. And the number one question that I get when people come in and they say, well, I want to start reading comics is, I have no idea where to start, and I'm afraid that if I pick something up, I will have no idea what the history is behind it. So the fact that they're going to put this all in one trade, and I will then be able to hand people this and go, this is the entire history of the Marvel Universe, every major event as it flowed from one to the other that you need to know. That actually is not a bad idea, honestly. That's actually kind of cool that they're doing that. And then, of course, the final and biggest concern is that he's like, okay, well, that's Marvel versus DC on their reboot ideas, but Marvel has done a reboot before, One More Day, which was one of the worst storylines they've ever done, and oh, the nerd rage. Oh, it's building. So that's the big argument that a lot of people are making, which is that, hey, this is what Marvel did the last time they tried to do a reboot. What makes you think they're going to do better now? Well, yeah, remember how I said that those little promo images they put out are going to spell out the new history of the Marvel Universe? And this was one of them. If you guys are serious about this, if this isn't like a tease, if you don't like just put this out there just to freak us the fudge out and then like tick us off again when you take it away from us, just to kind of like rub it in our face, then yeah, man, forgiven. I will be cool with it. You know what? We'll shake on it like gentlemen, and I will say good day to you, sir, and I look forward to buying your products, because that's all we want. That's all we want, is just for you to give us back the Spider-Man Mary Jane marriage and let Spider be a freaking adult. It drove me nuts during Superior Spider-Man that you have Ock there acting like the biggest tool and acting like, let's be honest, a freaking supervillain, and just being an asshole, and yet so many people liked him simply because they said, well, yeah, but at least he's responsible. At least he isn't just some kid like Pete is. Pete was not a kid up until One More Day, up until that reversed it. Superior Spider-Man, the lesson to learn from that is that people want Pete to be an adult again. So just give us that back. That is all we want out of this, and I will be happy with it. And honestly, it makes sense to do this. I mean, let's be honest, Miles is coming to the new universe. Miles is going to be in there. He's going to be incorporated. He's going to be some part of this new universe where he grows up in it, and he will be a Spider-Man legacy character. And here's the thing about that. Why on earth will you have a grown-ass Peter Parker still acting like a kid, and then have Miles Morales, who is an actual kid there, both as Spider-Man? It doesn't make sense. However, if you then say to someone, hey, do you want to see Spider-Man who acts like an adult? Then you have Peter Parker here. Do you want to see a Spider-Man who acts like a teenager? Then you have Miles Morales right here. It's perfect. It makes perfect sense to have Pete grow up in this new universe, because then you can have two different types of Spider-Man and everyone can be happy. So okay, let's just wrap this up with some final speculations, because like I said, everything that I've been saying is just speculation. It's just what I've been able to tell from what they've been giving us and what I think it means. But, seeing as that was speculation, let's just prep. Here is the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, everything's new. All these characters are brand new, we're being reintroduced to them again. All those stories that you've been reading, they don't mean anything. The weird alternate reality island things are still a thing, where every part of this new world is just a different continent from a different alternate reality, which makes no sense at all and would not work. Trust me, that would not work at all. And like, who wants an entire island out there where the Age of Apocalypse and Civil War are happening 24/7? No one wants that. Alright, that's the worst case scenario. Peter Parker once again becomes a teenager and he's got to grow up all over again. That's the worst case scenario. Kamala Khan, gone. Worst case scenario. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. Okay, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Here's the best case scenario. Best case scenario is basically everything still remains the same, except that Miles Morales is now fully incorporated into the Marvel Universe. He's not like some traveler from an alternate dimension. He came about naturally in this new universe, because trust me, if they just imported him from the Ultimate Universe, he wouldn't be the Miles you love. He would be the last survivor of a doomed universe, and you don't want that, okay? So best case scenario, the 616 universe is basically the same, except that Miles is now existed in this universe and he's growing up in it. And, you know, Pete's marriage is returned to him. Best case scenario. Okay. Also, they clean up the continuity a little bit, like I mentioned earlier with those one-shots. Fine. Best case scenario. That's it. So, okay, that was the best case scenario that I think the fans would like. Because I think that would be, you know, the simplest. It would get the least amount of people confused. It would get the least amount of people angry. And, you know, it might actually be something in which the internet would not complain, alright? That in and of itself is a huge accomplishment. So that's why I think that would be the best case scenario for everyone. But we're just speculating here, so let's get nuts. This is my personal best case scenario. I'm not even gonna lie. I think most of you people would hate this, but I would really like to see this happen. As I mentioned, one of the big reasons why they have to eventually do a reboot is because they have so many characters who are set in the past, and it's weird to try and adapt them or try and de-age them or figure out ways to make them move forward while keeping them connected to that past. Here's what I would like to see them do. When the Marvel Universe originally came about, you know, the modern day one, when the Fantastic Four came around, you know, they had their heroes in World War II, then there was a little bit of a gap, and then all of a sudden, bam, a decade or so later, Fantastic Four comes around. But because they keep moving everything forward, and yet still have that World War II set there, there's now this massive gap where nothing happened in the Marvel Universe. This is what I would like to see them do. Take all the characters they have and stretch them out. Spread them along that timeline. I would love to see, you know, the Fantastic Four was all about trying to beat the Russians into space. It doesn't quite work these days. I mean, space travel is not the big thing that it once was. So I would love to see them take Fantastic Four and just put them right back in the 60s. And for any of you guys out there who are like, that sounds stupid to me, Darwin Cook's Fantastic Four is set in the 60s. Yeah, you feel that? That's some nerd love building up inside you. Some nerd excitement. Yeah. See how good of an idea that is? See how fun that sounds? And then, listen, I love Luke Cage right now. I love him as the, like, elder statesman of the Marvel Universe, how he's training all these young kids. I love having Danny and, you know, Luke still around in the modern age. But, let's be honest, when you look at the old Luke Cage and his tiara phase, that seems just so weird to think that, you know, that now happened in, like, 2002 by our standards. And also, those guys grew up on the gritty streets of New York. Because they keep moving ahead, there no longer was a gritty streets of New York that they grew up on. Take Luke Cage and Iron Fist and Daughters of the Dragon and Shang-Chi and take those guys and set them in the 70s. Have that be where they were set. And then you can launch books. Have a book that is about the Fantastic Four in the 60s. Have a book that is about Luke Cage and Iron Fist set in the 70s. I would love to see stuff like that. And, you know, that way, if you keep spreading these characters out like that, it could explain things like, you know, Pete is now a little bit older and has a kid. But it would also clear up space for the legacy characters. I mean, how are you going to have a Miles Morales legacy character when you de-age Spider-Man again so they're almost practically the same age? You know, let these characters grow up so that way the future can belong to these legacy characters so we can see them grow up. I mean, think about the fact that we've had, like, what, 5 Ghost Riders now within the span of 6 years in the Marvel Universe by the Marvel Universe time period? No. Have Johnny Blaze set in the 70s, and then you can have Robbie Reyes set now. It would work so well. I would love to see that happen. And for you who might be saying, there's no way they're going to do that. They would never do that. One of those promo images they put out was called X-Men 92. It wasn't called X-Men Claremont. It wasn't called X-Men Lee. It wasn't called X-Men Blue and Gold. It was called X-Men 92. There was a date stamped on that. And let's be honest, X-Men is a total 90s team. They are all about grunge and rebellion, which is what the musical industry of that time period was about. I can see them being set back then in the 90s and having that be the 90s team that Marvel represents. And also the great thing about that would be that you would still have an X-Men in these days, but it would be the students, and they would be grown up, and they'd be adults. The New Mutants would have eventually come into their own and been adults, and they would now be training the next generation. I mean, think about the fact that Pixie has been a student at the X-Men school for about 15 years now, and she just now graduated, and yet she still acts like she's a student at the school because they don't know what to do with her. This would answer that problem. It would give us these generations, which is what I want. It's the legacy thing, which so many people love these days. I honestly think this would be a fantastic idea. But I want to know what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments below what your best and worst case scenarios for this Marvel reboot is happening. And don't say my best case scenario is that it doesn't happen. It's happening, baby. Get used to it. Deal with it and have your hopes and have your concerns. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So let me know your best case scenario, your worst case scenario in the comments below. And also, if you like this video, like I said, I'm going to have a ton of other things related to this Secret War event that's coming up. So hit that subscribe button to see them all, and hit that thumb up button to help promote me a little bit. Or just tell your friends, tell everyone you know, please. It helps promote me, I love it. Reblog this on Tumblr, put it on Twitter, anywhere that you want. Thank you guys so much for this, and I will see you next time.